All right. Welcome, Arlene Moss, to the Self-Employment Success Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, Leland, thanks for having me. This is great. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I'm really excited for today's conversation. For the listeners, Arlene has had a huge impact on my own business. I was pumping her up a few minutes ago, just telling her all the ways that her nuggets of wisdom have helped me. And so I'm really excited for to get to share her with all of you. And so, Arlene, start off by telling us who you are and what you do.
I am at XYPN. I'm the executive business coach, which means I help members like you and all of our, golly, 1,700 something members as they build and grow their businesses. So I work some one-on-one, some group coaching, some training, all kinds of good stuff. But I have worked in that space since 2004. No, I won't bore you with my full origin story. Suffice it to say, I worked, I had kids, I came back to the workforce, and that's where we begin, is me returning to the workforce. Part-time admin, I used to joke if I could find a job in my dining room, I would go back to work. And then darn if actually an XYPN member, Linda Lights, was like, hey, I found a job you can do in your dining room, sucker. So I went back to work. It was perfect. It was like nap time hours, and my youngest was little. But it was for ACP, the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, which is also a fee-only financial planning group. And I worked in their training department. I was just an admin, making copies. This is when we did hard copy binders and stuff.
Oh
But
gosh.
of course, you read what you're copying. And then I worked with the instructors. And as my life grew and I had more time to work, my boss was like, great, because we have more work for you and you have skills we need. So they pulled in, I have a marketing and information systems background. So they actually pulled in both of those. But then about 2008, I was ready to go full time and they wanted to launch a coaching program. And they said,
Mm.
look, you've been helping members. We think you're going to be perfect at this. You know, all the training materials. So a lot of my stuff is on the job training. I did long ago in a prior life, I took a Series 7, but we don't need to talk about that today. that was an old, long, long time ago. But it was just this perfect blend of I'm ready to work more. Great, we have more challenges. And it was just this stair step. So long story short, that went on. It was beautiful, wonderful. And in about 2013, I want to say, I said, you know what? I'm going to take the parts of my job that I absolutely love, which is the coaching of the financial planners, and I'm going to launch my own coaching business. So off I went, jumped in. Alan Moore and I were already friends. And so he was like, hey, we want you to do some contract work for XY. So honestly, that was wonderful because it cash flowed me that first year. Jumping from salary to zero, he kind of threw me a little life raft. And oh my gosh, I quoted him the worst. I don't even want to think about how low my rate was.
You're
It
like, we'll
was
definitely pay you.
so every time I harass you people about how you should charge what you're worth, because I know the pain of not doing it. And we laugh to this day about what a sucker I was. But you know what? It paid some bills. It got me through
Mhm.
that first year. It was great. So fast forward a couple of years and I realized, oh, I love entrepreneurs. I love coaching
Mm.
entrepreneurs. They're wonderful. You know what I don't want to be? An entrepreneur. So by that time, ISYPN had grown. They were looking to incorporate a business coach. Alan and I, of course, I was still doing contract work for them, staying in touch. And he came to me and he's like, would you think of working for us? And funny story, I don't want to take the whole thing on my origin story because it's not that great, but I had done a vision board. I don't know, that may sound really woo-woo to your listeners. It was
No.
definitely woo-woo to me. I did it just to get the woman that did them off my back because we were friends and colleagues at all these networking events. And she was always like, I got to get you to do my vision boarding. And finally I was like, oh my God, I'll just do it. Ugh, this is dumb. And I did it. And I painted this amazing picture. Like what I envisioned was so different than what my conscious mind was envisioning.
Mm.
And basically, I look back on it now, and what I envisioned was XYPN.
Mm.
So when I had that opportunity to jump on board, it was wonderful. So anyway, that's my story. I love working with solo entrepreneurs, boutique firms. I really specialize in that smaller space. And so here we are a gazillion years later, and I'm working with XYPN and loving it.
I
So
love that. So for listeners, XYPN is stands for XY Planning Network. It is a network for um, basically fee only financial planners who are also entrepreneurs. And so it's been such an incredible resource for me. It's a huge reason why I decided to go out on my own and have been able to do that successfully. And Arlene, within that realm, as she said, is kind of the executive business coach. So she offers business coaching to help kind of not only dream and envision what do I want my business to look like, but how do I do it? Where am I getting stuck? Where do I need to problem solve? Um, and so she has been instrumental for my business. But the things she teaches and coaches on are for entrepreneurs, not necessarily financial advisors specifically, which is why I think she's so valuable. And like you said, you've had the taste of entrepreneurship yourself to know, hey, these are the highs, these are the lows, and entrepreneurship isn't for every single person, you know? And I think that's a really powerful realization to come to. So for you, I would love to know, you know, for someone who is in that launching phase, you've worked with literally thousands of us now.
let's not
What
count. It makes me sound too old if we start counting.
what would you say, or like what keys to success would you give? Like things that you've seen so many times that are like, hey, these are the things you need to be thinking about, or these are the common hangups I find and how I would love to address that.
There's so many. We were talking ahead of time that this could be like a 5-hour podcast. But first thing is it is so rare. I won't say I've never run into it, but it is a very, very rare day that I run into someone who's like, man, I wish I had waited a couple years to do this. I did it too soon. No
Mm.
one says that. Almost universally, they're like, oh, I should have done this earlier.
Mm.
In fact, I had an interesting conversation with a guy at a conference recently, and he's thinking about launching on his own, da da da. He's got a good job. And, but it's not his dream. And he's like, oh, I know someday I'm going to do this. He goes, but I'm really not that unhappy.
Mm.
And I looked at him, I said, did you know you don't have to be miserable to launch your firm? You're allowed to launch your firm and be relatively happy at the same time. And it was this light bulb. He was like, oh my God, you're right. And it was just like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So that's the big first one. The
Mm.
second one, which brings in financial reality, is have some money. So, and that can come in a lot of different forms. Many people, it comes in the form of a spouse or a partner that has that
Mhm.
solid W-2. For me, that was my story. Nice, solid W-2 guy with benefits and all the happy things.
Mm.
But for some, if you don't have that partner, you need the finances. You need to have some money in the bank. Um, you know, People will say, oh, yeah, you need your emergency fund. But you know what? Starting your own business isn't an emergency. And so people get
Mhm.
this disconnect in their head. But have that fund of do what I want money,
Mhm.
or do it part time, have a side hustle, keep your day job. I work with people that do that all the time. They've got their 40 hours a week at the day job, and then part time they're building, and then slowly but surely we shift.
Mhm.
So that day job can be whatever you've been doing. Some people deliver pizza, whatever you want. So think about the finances, because there's going to be a lot of stress. This is
Mhm.
not like skipping through a field of daisies. Okay. This is going to be hard work. And the
Mhm.
last thing you need is also the money issues of, am I going to pay the mortgage? Am I going to pay the rent? So
Totally.
those are kind of the two. That's the balancing act. That's the
And
biggie.
and on that thought, I would just say like when I work with entrepreneurs, having the money saved or having an income stream the chances of success of your business are higher because you have a longer runway. If you
Yeah.
only have a 3 to 6 month long emergency fund, you're going to need to get that business completely successful in a unrealistic amount of time. And so I just totally agree with that. Whether there's a lot of ways you can spin it, but making sure you have something in the plan, like having, I mean, I'm a financial planner, having a financial plan to make sure we have a runway that's realistic and long enough so that your business can succeed.
Yeah. And no matter what business you're in, do your research on what your runway looks like. Now, I can speak to a financial planner runway in general, but even that varies depending on how much your clients are going to be paying, how quickly you're planning to onboard. You're a classic example of your results may vary. Like I just know your story, 45 clients, 18 months. That is not a typical number I would quote to someone
Mm,
if I were telling them to start up in financial planning. But now for anyone listening who's like, but I was going to start a nail salon or I was going to open a restaurant. I don't have knowledge on that. So do your research. Do
mm,
your research, listener. Figure out what is a logical runway for you. I can, again, I can say, hey, first year, as a financial planner, you're generally going to be digging a financial hole. Maybe you're going to flatline. That'd be lovely. And then the next year, you're going to be like, yay, let's put this money in the hole I dug last year. And you're not until year 3 to year 5. That's when you're going to start to see some money. But the data show that year 5 is when you pay yourself what you used to be making. It's
mm.
it's not just super quick. Again, I know you're like, what? I'm doing great.
I've listened to the benchmark studies and I feel so grateful and fortunate that I have had some quicker success to that. But I do, yeah. I mean, I think those numbers are totally realistic in the financial planning world. I think that's realistic, even if you're not starting your own business in the financial planning world, just becoming a financial planner and starting a book of business, even at, you know, a, as an employee planner, oftentimes it takes a couple years to
Yeah.
build that. And so, but yeah, I think just that point of every industry is going to have a runway. Like you're going to be a wedding photographer, like, you know, how quickly can you book weddings and what does that typically look like? That might be faster than you're starting a gas station. I don't know. like
Yeah.
uh
Yeah. It's my
every industry
brother-in-law
is
used to
different.
be a wedding photographer. It's funny you use that example. And so I watched that runway and I was like, well, that's not pretty. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah, and so
So
just knowing that and have I love that balance of don't wait, just do it. Like
yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have to wait till you're so miserable to leave something. You can be going towards something. You can be happy and
Oh,
then like leveling up, going towards something and have a financial like don't be an idiot about it. like have a financial runway, like have
when
some
you
research,
said that, I
know what you're
didn't.
doing.
I try not to say it in exactly those words, at least not in my out loud voice. That might be
Yeah.
what's in my head.
Well, I just remember I gave myself a year or two to really think through what do I want to do, and there were days where I'd come home from my old job and be like, I almost quit today, and like there's days where I'm like, screw it, I'm going for it. But then it's like
Yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah.
fail if I'm doing that and I'm not prepared. And so there's that give and take. There's kind of a sweet balance of don't let paralysis stop you and go into it sober minded, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. But, by starting before you get to that, screw it, I'm quitting stage, you're taking steps, which
Mhm.
frankly makes it a little easier to tolerate whatever's going on in that day job. Because
That's
you're
so
like,
true.
this isn't forever. This isn't my life. This isn't my
Yeah,
real life. This is just paying the bills. And
so
here I go.
true.
And that's a great combination too. So
Yeah, I love that. What else? I mean, you're filled with nuggets. Hit us with
what
them.
else? What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Here, I was joking with you before that like I cannot. I think there's probably even a clause in my employment contract that I cannot get on a podcast without mentioning niche. If you've listened to anything with XIPN, it's practically a drinking game because we talk about it so much, and this applies to any industry. Know your client, and I'll try to use an example that doesn't doesn't go down the financial path, but then I'll lean on what I really know. But like even a restaurant, know who you want to come in your restaurant.
Mhm.
Do you want, the folks that want the early bird special and are coming in and they're, teetotalers? Well, then, you know what? Open yourself a Village Inn. Like that's what you need. Free Pie Wednesday, go for it. I'm on board. If you want 20 somethings to come in and it's like their extra community and it's their third space, you know what? I don't think Village Inn is going to work for you. And I no shade to Village Inn. Okay. That's the whole point here, is that there's a Village Inn person. And then there's the, shoot, I'm going to use local stuff, which doesn't mean anything to anybody, but 503 West. I just love this little bar restaurant. Anyway, but you need to know, you need to have that avatar of, yes, this is who I'm looking for. They're
Mhm.
between these ages and they shop in these places and they like this kind of stuff. And the more you know, the
Mhm.
better you can do figuring out what you're going to offer, talking to that person, whether it's on your website, whether it's your marketing materials, whether it's content you're putting out to the world in your social media. It's how you decorate. Think about
Mhm.
it. Sticking with my ridiculous Village Inn example, poor Village Inn. Um, you know, that's one kind of decor, right? Like I can remember my grandmother would go places and like the big thing she would say was, "Oh, it's so nice and clean." I'm like, really? That's the best you got to say? And okay, that seems like the bar's low, Grandma, but you know what? You do you. And, you know, there are just different things you want people to say about you. And so and feel about you. And you just
Mhm.
need to think about that for everything you do.
Mhm.
And the more you do that from the beginning, the easier it's going to be for you to reach out. Casting a broad net is just not, it just isn't as valuable as you might think. And now I'm going to shift to what I do know, which is financial planning. If I just say, hey, I work with individuals and families to do your finances, well, what does that mean? What do you know about me? No, no,
Mhm.
no. You want to say, I work with folks in their 30s who have lots of student loan debt and are trying to start a family and balance beginning their career. And maybe they want to buy a house. And you're picturing this person and you know what their pain is. You know what their needs are. You can talk to them. So your blog content or your
Mhm.
podcast. I mean, this is a perfect example.
Mhm.
You're bringing on people that speak to entrepreneurs and starting a business.
Mhm.
You're not bringing on, I can't even think of a good example. Sorry, that analogy's went down the tubes. Oh
We
well,
got
sometimes I fail
it.
when I'm winging it. So that's probably a big thing. But again, I'm always the flip side, right? I was like, just do it, but also have money. This is know your client, really get a niche. Flip side, don't be perfect. You're gonna figure it out as you go. So
Mhm.
have a good idea, have a place to start, but also don't just sit there behind your desk looking for everything to be absolutely perfect. Get
Mhm.
on with it. I say oftentimes, don't look for clients under your desk, or sometimes I'll say, have you been looking for clients in the trash can again? Because that's not where they are. They're out of your office. Get your butt in gear and go find them. And people will tell me, well, you had an example, somebody who's working on their process. That's for those
Mhm.
of you who never worked with a financial planner, and you should, by the way. They have a process from the moment you say, hey, you're a financial planner, I might like to work with you. They have a process of helping you learn if you're a good fit and if you're the right client for their firm. And then you say, heck yeah, I am. Yay, sign me up. And then they have a process for onboarding you and helping learn about you and your problems and your issues. And then they create this beautiful financial plan. And it's all this cool process. And to be a business owner, it needs to be replicable so that
Mm.
you're efficient, but
Mhm.
also it doesn't have to be perfect. And I will meet people that are so busy making the perfect process
Mhm.
that they don't have anybody to go through the process. And you know what's going to help you figure out your process? Having a client go through it. So get the
Yeah.
client, stay one step ahead of them, and figure it out. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to take you longer than it normally would. You're going to see things you would do differently the second time. That's okay. Go get client number 2. Here they go. You make those changes and you keep evolving. So don't be perfect. Oh my gosh, I need a bumper sticker.
Oh my gosh.
No.
To both of those points. So like the riches are in the niches. We know it. And you mentioned like not only does it create like a clearer, hey, I'm a right fit for this advisor because they're speaking to me. But if I'm working with anybody under the sun, I have a client at 8 a.m. who we're, about to file for Social Security. I have a client at 10 a.m. who we're setting up a 529 plan for their kids. And it's just like everything is so disjointed, and everyone's situation will have unique complexities. But to be able to, whatever your business is, have those repeatable processes to know this is my client. I work with younger people. I understand Social Security. I don't, we're not filing for it, not most days. Like that's not my ideal client. And so I just think like knowing that allows you to not only go deeper with your clients or provide a better service to those, again, no matter what your industry is, it also just allows you to be hyper efficient and therefore to be able to serve more people. But there's that natural fear of, well, if I say I work with these people, then I don't work with all these other people. And then I will be destitute under the gutter because I won't get enough people. And you're like, well, you know, that's
Oh,
not, yeah, there's enough people to go around.
oh my gosh, that absolutely. And our data, again, leaning on our benchmarking and the industry benchmarking, our data show that you get more money, you make more money when you're in a niche because people will pay for expertise.
Hmm.
I pay more when I go to the orthopedist than I do
Hmm.
when I go to my GP. Same kind of a concept. Like, you're wonderful. I would send my children to you in a hot minute because you're
Thank you.
them.
Can I get that in writing?
I I think they all already have financial
Okay.
planners.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
But I would not go to you for exactly the point. Like, we're at this stage where we're like, oh my God, retirement is actually a thing that's gonna happen. Like, we have friends who don't work anymore. Like, it's there. Like, it's not right here, but oh my God, this is terrifying. How do we unpack it? How do we I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
any of that. So we're gonna go to someone who does.
Yeah, who
And
worked with people
back
in
to
that stage of life.
Yeah, and back to the business owner side of it, like, you always have to do research, right? There's always continuing ed and just having best practices and the latest thing, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's, a car mechanic or a financial planner. And you want to be able to focus in on the topics you love. That
Mhm.
is absolutely okay. My
Mhm.
neighbor works only on like two kinds of cars. He's a car mechanic and he owns two kinds. Like, if I take a Ford over there, he's gonna be like, cool, here's my buddy Steve. He works on Fords. I don't work on Fords. Look at the name of my business. Does it say anything about Fords? No, it does not. And
Mm.
that's how you want a financial planner to be, any business, so that you can be like, yeah, I love 529s. I love college planning. If I can like get bargains for college funding for my clients, I am a happy camper. If I can
Mhm.
have my clients save so much money that they just skate through the college years with no pain, yay me. Social Security unpacking and Medicare and what are the tax ramifications when you retire? That might be a yawn fest for you. And that's absolutely okay. Since you don't serve those people, haha, now you never have to do that research. You don't have to know. You
I
just
know.
need to know that Sharon down the road loves Medicare stuff. Off you go to her.
Totally. That has been the most freeing thing in my last firm. We were the, if you have a pulse, we're going to work with you. And there are so many people where I'm like, ugh, every time they show up on my calendar, I'm just dreading it because it's just not fun. Like what they need is not fun.
Right,
But
right.
moving into XYPN and starting my own firm and having that ability, like you said, to say, who is my ideal client avatar? Who do I like to serve? How do I speak to them? I've yet to have a situation where people show up on my calendar and I'm like, like this is going to be so like pulling teeth because I've gotten to choose who I work with and be able to specify this is who I serve. This is who I can deliver a lot of value to and who I like to
Yep.
that value I deliver. And again, I think all industries are doing it. It's just we don't think about it when we're starting our business. Like eventually you'll start like even if you start general, you'll find more and more you kind of if you don't choose a niche intentionally, you'll fall into one
Right.
unnaturally, you know?
Right. Yeah, it'll just come about. But also you mentioned, if people have a pulse or, people will talk about, the fog of mirror test.
Mhm.
You know, Sometimes somebody's going to come along and they're not in what you defined as your ideal, but you're going to click and you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to work with this person. I like this person. And that's okay. Like that
Mhm.
may be your entry into another niche where suddenly you're like, oh, I really click with college professors. I did not know that. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, you realize because referrals happen and word gets out, then suddenly you have college professors.
Mm.
And I've seen that happen time and again where it's this drift, this shifting and because your clients are going to refer you and the ones you click with will refer others.
Mhm.
So don't be afraid to say yes to people if you want to work with them. But also, if ever you have that dread on your calendar, that's a person
That
you need to graduate to
well, and that is
another
just like
thing.
that's your like mind and body and heart telling you like this isn't it. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
you started a business to, pursue your own dreams and this is clearly not that dream being fulfilled.
And I've had that happen a few times where, because almost every lesson I ever teach, I like to experience it just for fun. And taking someone that maybe on paper it looked like it should be a good fit, but there's the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know, we're not clicking, but I'm like, no, I'll get over it. And then you don't get over it. Usually the not getting over it is kind of mutual. And so
Mm.
if it's a really bad fit, that person's feeling that. And
Mhm.
I've had several where I say, you know what? You deserve better. And
Mm.
we are not clicking the way I think you deserve. So here are four coaches I think would be better for you. And usually by the time I'm willing to say, I can't do it, I know enough about them that I can pick from my roster of
Mhm.
people I know and be like, I think you would work better with Elizabeth or
Mhm.
whoever. And I've had that happen a couple, maybe three times. So not very many.
Mhm.
But they've always been kind of grateful. Like, oh, I thought it was just me. That's the thing. So I say, oh, I thought maybe I just didn't like coaching. I'm like, no, it's us. It's not
Mhm.
a blame game. It's just like, yeah, we're not clicking right, are we?
Yeah.
Let's give it and that's lovely. You're wishing that person the best, but you're also honoring the fact that you deserve the best.
Mhm. I love that. Something you said
Yeah.
earlier about like creating a process. And, you need to know your client to have a process that works for that client. But there's such a give and take there. I love that you were saying like the best way to create your process is to have someone go through it because you're going to find the road bumps, you're going to find the things that work and don't work. And I have a buddy who started a similar firm to me, and it was almost 6 months in, and he was like, I'm still trying to figure out how my process is going to work. And when we asked them, like, well, what is your process? Like, how has it worked thus far? He was like, well, I haven't had anybody go through it. I'm trying to get it perfect before,
Yeah.
someone comes through. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, you just need to get people in the door and people in seats. And there's that analysis paralysis. And I mean, when I was
Mhm.
launching, I bet you probably don't even remember this, but I was like, there's a million different client relationship manager tools, CRM tools. I'm like, trying to demo every single one. I'm spending way too much time looking at each integration they have. And you were like, you can just like choose one. And down the line, if it's not working, you can switch. But like, you need a CRM tool. So just pick one and like, don't get too caught up in that. And that has been something that stuck with me. Even yesterday, I was doing a financial plan delivery, and I had, thought maybe I'm going to change up how I do this. I'm going to change my deliverable, and did it. And I think the client doesn't know any different and really enjoyed it. But for me, I was like, I think the old process actually works better. And so I'm just going to keep it. I don't need to I don't need to fix a broken thing. But having the freedom to say, I need processes, but also the freedom to say, I don't have to be perfect the day I open the doors. Like, I can open the doors and start working, and the business is a living and growing thing because I'm a living and growing person. And so, you know, process can change, niche can change, like how I move through things with people can modify. And almost in order to do that, you need to have people coming through the door to see what's not working. Because in your head, you build
Yeah.
up, well, if I do, this, and then I do this meeting, and this is how I run this meeting, and these are the questions I ask, and this is the deliverable. In your head, you're painting this beautiful picture, and then someone's going to come in and it's going to crash course 10 times, and you're like, oh wait, that was not nearly as smooth as I thought it was going to be. And that's totally
Yes.
normal, totally fine, and you can pivot then.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Clients will help you figure out what's wrong with your process for sure. You touched on so much there. I want to unpack that a little bit because
Mm,
you just hit like four awesome bullets, and I'm not even sure you realized you did that. So first off, on the
relief.
technology, pick it and go. I don't want to be too glib about that, but also, yeah, set yourself a time limit. And it depends on kind of what the thing is. Like, I've had people freeze for ridiculous amounts of time just picking a template for a website that they're going to do themselves. And I'm like, oh, my friend, no, you set a timer of 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes to pick a template for your website and then move along. Because, fun fact, that website's going to last you like a year or two and you're going to get a new one. So it isn't worth the time. But like the CRM, the kind of the heart of your business technology, yes, it's important. It absolutely is. But also, most of them do really similar things. You had an interesting situation because you're an XYPN member. So you have this organization
Mhm.
that is saying, hey, we've done some vetting. Here's the one we recommend.
Yeah.
Just move on. If there's an organization like that for your listeners, for whatever their business is, then yeah, I would say go with it. Go with, again, niche. I remember long ago, I was working with my hairdresser who was trying to get more organized. There are CRMs for hairdressers who are designed specifically so that, like, what you get a certain dye job and there's a formula, you put those notes in, and it had all kinds of crazy stuff in it that I wouldn't
Mhm.
have thought of. I just thought she was a genius who knew how to cut my hair every time.
Nope, she's like,
She's
"Arlene, show
she's
me," and
still
then I looked at
wonderful.
Arlene's profile, and now I know what we do,
Yes, yes. But obviously we're saving different things. So go ahead with the ones that specialize in your area. Pick it, and if it isn't quite right later, you can move. It's not that big of a deal. The other thing, and I think you mentioned this, but that what I call shiny object syndrome, and I didn't
Mm.
make that up, like lots of people call it shiny object syndrome, but have a space in your life for your shiny objects. I generally tell people quarterly at the most as they get more established, maybe even every 6 months, but don't find a solution in search of a problem. Make
Mm.
sure
Mm.
because that happens all the time. Oh my God, I went to this conference and I saw this cool thing for estate planning. Like, well, are you having any trouble with your estate planning? No, but it was so cool. Like, do do you need that? No, you do not. You know,
Oh,
so
that's me.
but I know it's so many people, you're not alone. But at the same time, like, there are cool technologies. Technology just moves so quickly. So, okay, put it into shiny object time. Every quarter, you get to spend a whole day just playing and looking at new technology and figuring out, but come at it with this approach of, okay, what are my problems? What are my pain points? I
Mhm.
don't feel like I'm as efficient on estate planning as I need to be, but I saw these two different estate planning things at the conference. I'm going to go look at how they might be able to help me
Mhm.
and be more intentional about your shiny object time.
Mm.
So that was, I feel like, okay, there were so many things you touched on. Oh my gosh. Um, Now I'm freezing. I think I covered the ones I wanted to hit, but I probably didn't.
Well,
So keep
on the shiny object thing, I'm like, I see that with my clients in all different industries, like people being like, I paid for this like sales lead generator that they say they're going to give me like X amount of leads per month and I spend all this money. It's like, well, I'm looking at your business. It's growing really fast. You have a lot of leads. Like, do you need that many? And are they going to be junk leads? Like, and they pay for it and they're like, oh, wait, now I'm just spending all this money on this thing and it's not really panning out. And like I essentially either created a problem or tried to solve for a problem that doesn't exist. I love that thought. Like I was telling these two of my really close friends recently, I was like, I need to stop listening to financial advisor podcasts because, or just put boundaries on it because I just absorb it all the time. And everyone has their like, I have this Facebook community that I created. I use this software. I have this. And I'm like, yes, I clearly need to have, what am I doing? I don't have a Twitter community and a Facebook community. And I don't, like have 10 different CRMs that all work differently. Like I,
Mhm.
I get so caught up in all those things. And I'm like, I just need to do three things well. And what are the things that I actually like to do and like can execute on to provide value? And like you said, create a shiny objects box. You could even put that in your CRM. Like in my CRM, I have a project that's like ideas. And I can go in and make notes of like, these are ideas. And then, once a year when I'm doing my business review, I can sit down and say, what do I want to stop doing? What do I want to start doing? What do I want to, keep doing? And is there anything in the shiny object box that can help me do those things? But I love the shiny object syndrome. I think that's like just so real.
Oh, it's so common. And but you make a point, like, do three things and do them really well. And I had a client who stole something from a Chicago baseball team that throws balls on a field and hits them with a
Mm,
stick. Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank.
baseball?
Anyway, doesn't matter. But the manager said, something along the lines of do simple well. And even
Mm.
that, I'm paraphrasing badly. I am so sorry, Chicago. I am failing you. I live in Colorado. I am so sorry. Their first village and now the entire Chicagoland area. I'm going to go down in flames on this
What are you
podcast.
talking about,
Oh
the
my gosh.
Cubs?
I'm assuming. I'm
It
just
sounds
doing
like
this little
baseball.
blank.
They
I'm like,
throw balls, they
do
hit them
they
with
wear
sticks.
socks? Are they named after an animal? Like, I just drew a blank. Oh my gosh.
That is
So
so
sorry. Oh, goodness gracious. See, that would have been a good, that's a good question, Leland moment, which you didn't ask me a question, but I should have tried to use that anyway to gather my thoughts. Anywho, do simple well is the bottom line there. I drew that whole story out way longer than it needed to be. But what you mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, da 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 da. I love this because we get to circle back to niche. Figure out where your people are.
Mm.
And fun fact, not that many of them are on Twitter. Like there are absolutely people who are building their business on Twitter. And I love the olden days Twitter a lot. So I am on board with that. But figure out where your people are
Mhm.
and go where they are. If they're on Facebook, then get your butt over there. Make a Facebook community if you
Mhm.
want. If they're on Instagram, Instagram is just super duper popular. But not for everyone.
Mhm.
So, grandmas, if you're working primarily with the grandma crowd, they're not on Insta. That's not where they're going. So figure that out and don't try to be all things to all people. And honor what you like to do. Like if you don't
Mhm.
like Twitter, don't do it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Figure out something else. There's another
No one's
solution.
missing you on Twitter. No one's like, why hasn't this person created a Twitter account before?
Right, right. Yeah. Well, every once in a while I am when I want customer service, but that's another story for another podcast. But you're right, just be where you want to be. Like this is a perfect example. Podcast. Some people would say like, "Oh no, That's one of the circles of hell. Please don't put me on camera. Please don't make me talk for an hour. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can't do it. But you say, okay, then write me a 2,000 word blog every week. And they'll be like, oh, that's my happy place. I'm going to make a latte. I'm going to bang out 2,000 words and all's right with the world. That's
Yeah.
okay. Do
I
your thing.
I felt like I needed a blog and I tried and I was like, I can do it. I hate it. And then I'm like, I binge listen to podcasts. Clearly I can talk. I'm not like a man of few words. Like that's like the opposite problem. And so I was like, this is it. Like I'm relational. I like to talk to people. I love hearing people's stories. Let's do that, and it's so fun. Like I get to spend my morning with Arlene Moss and like get almost a refresher coaching course through this podcast. It's awesome.
Get
So
all kinds of fun affirmations. So,
yeah.
I told you that I could not make it through a podcast without an Eisenhower matrix, and I wasn't
Yes.
lying. And this is the moment. This is the Eisenhower matrix moment. I think I might like them more than is normal, but that's another story. If you have never used an Eisenhower matrix, dear listener, they are that fun little grid. You've seen them. There's no
Mhm.
question in my mind. You've seen one. It's just 4 squares, boom, boom, super straightforward. And then you do the X and Y access like you can do good, I'm good at this, and I love to do this. That's a
Mhm.
good example of like kind of picking in this realm. I'm good at it. I'm good at talking. Yes, I sure am. I'm really, really good at talking. And I love talking. Yes, I do. I love talking. Okay. So podcast for Leland, right? Because
Mhm.
that you're way up here in this. I love it. I'm good at it. This is
Mhm.
kind of hard to do with my hands. Okay, blogging, writing. You good at it? Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you write really well. We're going to just assume you're good at it. Do you like it? Wah, wah.
Nope.
Nope, you hate it. So that's in a different quadrant. And you're like, okay, then I don't need to do that. I get to mark that quadrant out. There's also, I'm going to now shift this to the broader business sense. There are going to be things that you're not good at and you don't enjoy them.
Mhm.
Outsource the crap out of that stuff because it's not a great use of your time to
Mm.
bust your butt to learn something you're really bad at when there are people in the world who can do it and love it.
Yeah.
You want
Top of their
everybody in
Eisenhower
that upper
matrix.
quadrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go find that person. And and there are people that love it. We have a joke in our family, like if there's a trip, there's a spreadsheet because I love a good spreadsheet and I love to be organized on a trip and I love to plan and I'm a big believer in that. So if there's a trip, there's a spreadsheet. No question. My husband will get somewhere and I'll be like, you didn't look at the spreadsheet. And he's like, no, I didn't. I don't care about the spreadsheet. I just need to know where we're going today. Like, you're going to tell me what we're doing on this vacation and I'm ready. So that's okay. You find your other person,
Yeah.
what's your upper quadrant? So I want to empower people to use the Eisenhower matrix. And I should do a whole webinar just on Eisenhower matrix because you can use them for everything. They're
Mhm.
wonderful. So, but you can't do it all. You don't need to do it all.
You
Figure
don't
out your
wanna do it
highest and
all.
best use. You don't want to do it all. Yeah, excellent point.
I feel like that's
So,
the thing on this podcast, so many entrepreneurs come on and like, "I really love this," and then I really hate bookkeeping. And I'm not good at it. And I became a business owner and I wasn't ready to do the business side of it. It's like, well, that is a huge lower left quadrant thing that there are accountants and bookkeepers who they love it. They're like, let me go through your QuickBooks for you and get it all clean and pretty. And you're like, wonderful. I couldn't hate that more. And so like
oh
that's
my
like
gosh.
totally an example of that.
That's exactly me. When I launched my coaching business, before I had revenue dollar one, I was like, I need to find a bookkeeper. And I met this woman at a networking event and I was like, I don't have any money yet, but I want everything set up and I want to know how to do it because I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And I don't want to actually do it. I just want to tell you. And so she taught me like what receipts I needed to save, how I needed to save them. And, she handled it. Oh, and I got to talk to people and coach, which
Yeah,
is
and you got to do
the
what
upper
you love
quadrant.
about. Yeah, totally. I love the Eisenhower matrix example. I didn't know that's what it's called, but you're right. I see them everywhere. I've literally seen you use them. So I'm like,
Oh, I love them. I am freakishly obsessed with them. It's a
um,
little weird.
so this is a podcast about success. But as you know, if you ask anybody how they define success and what that means to them, it's going to be different per person. So for you, what does success look like for Arlene Moss? How would you define it, and how will you know if you've achieved it when you'll achieve it?
Oh my gosh, you should have given me that ahead of time.
I didn't mean
Oh,
to. I apologize.
did you, did you get, I missed that one. If you gave me
No.
that in the pre-stuff, that's now it's time. That's such a great question. For anyone who has not been on a podcast or listened to a panel or anything, that is the classic stall
Yeah, like
answer.
that is
Such a
such a good
great
question. Thank you so much
question.
for asking it. And the thing about good questions is,
Oh my God. Okay, I am just going to go from the gut. I have had clearly a couple seconds of joking around to think about it. Um, I will tell you what I tell people that I love to do work wise, because there's personal success and work success, and how
mhm,
do they blend?
yep.
So work wise, I feel like I am changing the world one
Mm,
advisor at a time. And XY also does. This is one reason I know why XYPN and I are so aligned, is we have this very, very similar view of the world. Like I can 10x my impact on the world. I'm not a financial planner. I don't want to be a financial planner, but good Lord, I love the value they bring to people, and I
mm,
see the changes they make. One advisor at a time, or I guess in XY's case, 1,700 advisors at a time. I can make that change. And then you can go out and change the lives of all of your clients. And for many of XYPN members, because you're working with younger clients, you are making generational impacts, which is just, sometimes it blows my mind that I get to be a little pebble in this pond that just goes out. That is success.
mm,
And, talking to somebody like you, where you're like, I remember what you told me, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, that is success. Like, look
mm,
at you now have 45 families that you are changing. Those families have children. They will grow up in a different way, and that will change them. And
mm.
I got to be a teeny tiny part of that. And that is, oh my gosh, I'm going to get teary eyed, except no, I'm not, because it's not appropriate. And on the personal front, it's kind of similar, but definitely not exactly the same. But on the personal side, I mean, I have 3 kids who are not kids. They're grown humans living their lives. They're wonderful members of society. But again, it's that ripple effect. I had, my husband and I raised these 3 wonderful humans who are going to make the world a better place, each in their
Mm.
own little way. And then hopefully, please God, some of them will have children. Sorry, that's a joke. I'm a wannabe grandma, and they're all like, "You're too
Hey,
young, and
that's
we're too
great.
young. Hold your horses."
There's a
So
niche for wannabe grandmas, you know.
I'm that lady at church who's like ready to talk to any child, under the age of 18,
I
practically. But
love
anyway, we drift. But success, back to that
Yeah.
question. It is it is that impact on the world through my children, through other children, but primarily my own children, turning
Mhm.
them into good members of society and watching them go change the world in their own unique way. Because not all of us can be out there and be, some huge famous person that's gonna be taught about in schools for generations, but all of us can make a little change
Mm,
that impacts the world in a positive way. And there we go.
amen. Totally. And you're discounting yourself. You're not just a pebble. You're a pretty solid rock in the pond of at least my business.
In your pond, I'm a
Yeah.
whole rock. Yay.
But I love that image of just like raising your kids and sending them out and who they're impacting and who their kids will impact and for every advisor you care for and making our businesses better so that we can care for more heartbeats. Like I've heard people talk about their clients as like they're not a client, they're a person you serve, they're a heartbeat. And they have kids who are heartbeats and like you're changing
Oh,
generations that way. And to imagine like 1700 advisors at XYPN and all of their clients and then all of their families, like there's just it really is you get to have a huge impact on the world. And
yeah.
so many of these people don't even know who are like the clients don't know who Arlene Moss is, you know,
Oh, no.
but they
No.
don't know that they're positively impacted dramatically
Yeah.
by, like that's so cool. That is totally
Yeah.
success. I love it.
And that's probably, yeah, that's the thing to remember as we maneuver life is that not everyone you impact is going to even know you exist. But that doesn't mean you can't have a positive impact.
Totally. Well, gosh, thank you so much for giving me so much of your time today. This conversation is incredible. And yeah, I'm just so very grateful for you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. This has been a real gift to me. I am revved up for the rest of the day. This is what a way to lead into my weekend. I don't know if people know you record these on Fridays, but
They do now.
yeah, they do now. Ta-da. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course.